clawed their way back into the frame after an entire committee of cowards declared you finished in writing. Look who's standing in the sunlight after being pronounced dead by people who thought ink was stronger than instinct. Look who's breathing comfortably after they convinced themselves your expiration date had already passed. Hello, you beautifully inconvenient contradiction. You walking obituary rewrite. You breathing violation of every prediction they ever stapled to your name. Do you understand what you did? They didn't just doubt you, they archived you. They filed you under no longer relevant, stamped the folder shut, and congratulated themselves for eliminating the variable that scared them the most, the possibility that you weren't done evolving. They watched you die on paper, and it soothed them. Paper deaths are easy. Paper deaths don't scream. Paper deaths don't climb out of the grave and tap on the window. They thought the documentation would hold, thought the signatures would seal the deal, thought the official labels would bury you deeper than any funeral ever could. They replaced your pulse with paperwork and assumed that was enough. But then reality made a correction, because while they were busy writing conclusions, you were busy refusing to participate in them. And when you surfaced, alive, alert, and inconveniently unburied, they felt a kind of panic they've never had language for. Let's not pretend they were subtle about it. They didn't just bury you metaphorically. They buried you operationally. They buried you socially, professionally, spiritually. They covered you in enough dirt to suffocate an entire generation. They didn't even check for a heartbeat. They assumed your silence meant surrender. They assumed your stillness meant defeat. They assumed your collapse meant compliance. They didn't realize the ground they buried you in wasn't a coffin, it was a training chamber. They didn't realize the silence wasn't death, it was metamorphosis. They didn't realize the stillness wasn't surrender, it was strategy. What they really underestimated was how dangerous a buried person becomes when they stop fearing the dark. A buried person learns to navigate without light. A buried person learns to move without sound. A buried person learns the thickness of the soil between them and the surface, measuring it by instinct rather than hope. A buried person learns the architecture of the trap by touch alone. They thought you'd suffocate under the weight they piled onto your name. Instead, you learned to breathe in conditions they designed to kill you. And the moment they heard you digging, oh, that was the moment their reality cracked. Dirt shifted. Foundations trembled. Something moved where nothing should move. It was subtle at first, the way an animal senses a predator returning from the dead. Then the rumble grew, then the vibrations spread, then their certainty fractured, because the grave they built for you was supposed to be permanent. You weren't supposed to have the audacity to claw upward. You weren't supposed to have the strength to break the surface. You weren't supposed to have the nerve to rise after they invested so much energy into your burial. They didn't think resurrection was an option. They forgot resurrection is always an option for those who never asked permission to exist in the first place. Let me show you what terrifies them. It wasn't your disappearance. It was how clean it looked. They thought they'd finally perfected the art of getting rid of you without getting their hands dirty. A few signatures here, a few forwarded messages there, an expertly timed rumor, a conveniently lost opportunity, a coordinated silence that wrapped around your name like a rope. Every little maneuver was designed to declare you dead without needing a body. They crafted a narrative so airtight they assumed even you would believe it. But narratives aren't coffins. They're only prisons when you mistake them for truth. And you, inconvenient creature that you are, refused to swallow the obituary written in your absence. You didn't go along with the story. You didn't agree to the ending. You didn't participate in the funeral they held behind your back. The paper said you were done. The paperwork said you were finished. The documents said you had no future. Yet here you are, alive, breathing, moving, ruining their assumptions with every step. The moment they saw you standing in real life, moving with a pulse the paperwork said you shouldn't have, they lost their composure in ways they will never admit out loud. Because your resurrection wasn't symbolic. It was logistical chaos. It was administrative nightmare fuel. It was a walking contradiction, dragging its shadow across every form they ever filed to erase you. They didn't just bury you. They choreographed your burial like a ritual. The timing was too precise, too orchestrated. Every loss occurred in the same season. Every betrayal landed in the same week. Every door slammed in the same hour. It wasn't coincidence, it was coordination. Someone, somewhere, decided it was time to eliminate you from the equation. And everyone else fell in line. They didn't want you suppressed. They wanted you erased. They wanted you off the board. They wanted you untraceable, unmentionable, unavailable to the very life you were building. And still, somehow, you refused to stay dead. That's what they can't compute. They didn't just rig the system, they remodeled it specifically to exclude you. They patched every loophole you found. They sealed every exit you discovered. They introduced new forms of sabotage every time you adapted. They monitored your reactions like scientists studying a specimen. They increased the difficulty every time you refused to break. They weren't playing a game. They were running an experiment. You were the variable they believed they could force into zero. But zero doesn't mean nothing. Zero means origin. Zero means the point everything else must revolve around. Zero means the collapse that becomes the blueprint for rebirth. When they pushed you to zero, they thought they were ending you. They didn't realize zero is where impossible things begin. Your paper death was supposed to finalize the narrative. Your burial was supposed to silence your name. Yet here you are, walking on the same ground they thought they owned, breathing the same air they assumed they had restricted access to. Your existence is a walking audit of their corruption. Your pulse is proof that their calculations were flawed. Your presence is the error message flashing across the system they used to bury you. They watched you die on paper and believed it. That was their mistake. They believed documentation over destiny. They believed signatures over spirit. They believed their authority was stronger than your inevitability. So when you resurfaced, it broke something in them. Their confidence, their assumptions, their sense of control. You weren't supposed to be able to climb out. You weren't supposed to be able to breathe again. You weren't supposed to be able to walk into a room looking more alive than you did before they tried to delete you. Now every time they see you, they're reminded of the grave they built and failed to keep you in. Every move you make feels supernatural to them. Every success feels like a violation of the laws they tried to write around your life. Every breath you take feels like defiance because in their minds, you shouldn't have lungs anymore. They saw you dead on paper, so seeing you alive in reality rearranges their sense of what's possible and worse, what's inevitable. You know what's truly beautiful. They didn't prepare for this version of you. They prepared for your collapse. They prepared for your exhaustion. They prepared for your surrender. They didn't prepare for your return. They didn't prepare for your persistence. They didn't prepare for the version of you that learned to navigate the dark, breathe under pressure, and rise without permission. When you dug upward, you weren't just escaping the grave. They had created the conditions for your evolution. They forced you deeper than you'd ever gone. And in that depth, you found the part of yourself that doesn't respond to fear, that doesn't respond to endings, that doesn't respond to their claims of authority. The irony is exquisite. They buried you to stop you. But burial is what activates the instinct for resurrection. They killed you on paper to erase you. But paper is the weakest material in existence when the person it's used against refuses to accept its authority. They ended your story without realizing you were still the author. They declared your demise without accounting for your defiance. Now they have to face the aftermath, the consequence, the walking contradiction that refuses to collapse. They're watching you move differently, speak differently, breathe differently, like someone who died once and decided not to repeat the experience, like someone who doesn't fear the dark anymore because they learned to build a map inside it, like someone who knows the soil better than the surface and therefore knows exactly how to rise from anything. And as you stand there now, alive, undeniable, impossible, they feel the tremor of what comes next. Not your revenge, not your retaliation, something far more unsettling, your continuation. Because once someone witnesses their own burial from the inside, once someone hears dirt fall on their name and still keeps digging, once someone sees their death certificate and refuses to comply, there is no going back to being predictable. There is no going back to being controllable. There is no going back to being anything less than the anomaly that breaks the system. And this is where the real panic begins. The part they hoped they'd never see. The part they never prepared. Because your return wasn't the end of their fear. It was only the beginning of what your resurrection was about to trigger. They never factored in what happens when someone dies, in theory, but lives in practice. They never studied the psychology of a person who has already attended their own funeral. They never mapped out the trajectory of someone who has climbed out of the grave with their bare hands and a memory of what the dirt tasted like. They didn't plan for the version of you that steps out of annihilation with the calm of someone who no longer fears endings. That's why your presence now is destabilizing. They're engaging with someone who already faced the worst-case scenario and came back uninterested in playing small. Because when you come back from a burial, your relationship with fear permanently changes. Fear becomes a noise in the background, an irrelevant flicker, a vibration you stopped responding to. When you've been underground, the surface loses its ability to intimidate you. And when you've died on paper, real life becomes the stage where you prove that documentation means nothing when the universe itself intervenes. You're walking proof that they miscalculated the limits of human resilience. You're living evidence that their paperwork holds no jurisdiction over your destiny. Your return is a distortion in their system, an anomaly they can't categorize, a survival they can't rationalize. You resurrected yourself without permission, without protocol, without waiting for any narrative to validate your existence. You broke the chain of events they believed was unbreakable. And that's why they're panicking, because suddenly the rules don't apply to you anymore. Not socially, not psychologically, not spiritually, not structurally. The moment they saw you walking in real life, breathing, moving, unbothered, their internal alarms activated. You weren't supposed to resurface. You weren't supposed to walk into a room with the composure of someone who outlived the obituary. You weren't supposed to smile like someone who has seen the inside of the grave and decided the world above ground was easier to navigate. They watched you die on paper, so seeing you alive in flesh fractured their sense of control. It wasn't just surprise. It wasn't just confusion. It was terror, because they realized they had created a problem that could no longer be buried. See, your resurrection wasn't poetic. It was mathematical sabotage. It violated their predictions, their charts, their calculations. You didn't come back as the person they buried. You came back as the consequence of burying someone who refuses to stay contained. You came back with a mind sharpened by isolation, a vision clarified by darkness, a strength forged by pressure. They buried you alive, thinking the dirt would quiet you. Instead, the dirt taught you how to hear every vibration in the foundation they stand on. You moved differently after the burial. You thought differently. You felt differently. When you claw your way up through soil, you develop instincts that the surface dwellers don't understand. You learn to sense shifts before they happen. You learn to detect the tremors in intention. You learn to track the emotional footsteps of people who think they're hiding. They wanted to erase you, but in their attempt, they gave you the exact environment needed to evolve past their comprehension. And that's what terrifies them now. Your evolution wasn't random. It was engineered by their sabotage. Their cruelty crafted your immunity. Their betrayal built your perception. Their manipulation strengthened your boundaries. They wanted to destroy your identity. Instead, they refined it into something precise, something disciplined, something lethal in its calm. You weren't healed. You were upgraded. Imagine their horror seeing you walking like you were never dead to begin with. Imagine the silence when you walk into a space that once conspired against you. Imagine the tension when the person they tried to erase starts existing loudly without speaking, making their false narrative collapse under the weight of your presence alone. It's not your words that scare them. It's your continuation. You are a violation of their closure. They closed the chapter on you. You opened the entire book again. They buried you, thinking the ground would hold you. You learned the fault lines and walked out through the cracks. They tried to finalize your story using paperwork. You tore the paperwork apart by existing. And the moment they saw you, alive, unburied, breathing without hesitation, they felt something collapse inside them, something old, something comfortable, something they relied on to feel superior. Your existence proved their authority was an illusion. Their decisions weren't destiny. Their signatures weren't sentences. Their systems weren't infallible. You cracked the illusion of their power by refusing to die where they placed you. Now everything you do feels supernatural to them. Not because you are, but because they didn't prepare for someone who operates without fear, without attachment to their approval, without dependence on their structures. They're watching someone who functions outside their frameworks, someone who treats setbacks as training, someone who walks through obstacles like they're made of smoke. You became the type of person bureaucracy can't contain. You became the type of person narrative can't manipulate. You became the type of person sabotage can't break. And the truth is simple. Once someone unburies themselves, they never return to the version who got buried. Once someone walks after being declared dead, they never again move like someone who fears collapse. You've seen the bottom, and it didn't kill you. You've seen the grave, and it didn't claim you. You've seen your name on paper beside the word done, and you refused to accept the verdict. Your resurrection rewrote the balance of power. Now every system you walk through detects something unusual. A presence that doesn't match the statistics, a pulse that contradicts the records, a consciousness that refuses classification. They can't predict you anymore. They can't contain you. They can't even imitate you, because imitation requires understanding, and understanding requires access to a depth they've never reached. When they buried you alive, they thought they were silencing a threat. But buried threats don't stay silent. They incubate, they metamorphose, they gather strength in the dark. You weren't just lying in a grave. You were studying everything that put you there. You were memorizing the weight of betrayal. You were measuring the pressure of collapse. You were learning how much force it takes to push through the soil when the world above pretends you're gone. So now when you walk, there's a quiet violence in your steps, a precision in your presence, a stability that unnerves people who believed they broke you. You're no longer reactive, you're inevitable. They don't know what to do with the version of you that does not fear outcomes, because when you've already been dead on paper, every moment afterwards feels like borrowed time you refuse to waste. Your existence now is a glitch in their control system, a loophole they can't patch, a malfunction they can't isolate. They don't know how to respond to someone who refuses to operate within the boundaries of the script they wrote. They don't know how to navigate a person who doesn't crumble when attacked, who doesn't shrink when ignored, who doesn't disappear when exiled. You became their worst-case scenario, a person who survived the plot designed to eliminate them and came back with immunity to manipulation. Their tactics don't work anymore. Their silence doesn't hurt anymore. Their judgments don't register anymore. You're operating in a realm above their emotional reach, and this is why the panic sets in. You didn't just return. You returned upgraded. You returned self-sustaining. You returned with a clarity that sees through their pretense. You returned with a resilience that laughs at their attempts to destabilize you. You returned with a freedom they can't revoke. Because death on paper freed you from expectations. Burial freed you from illusions. Resurrection freed you from fear. Now you move like someone who rewrote their own rules. You navigate like someone who rebuilt their psychology in the dark. You stand like someone who confronted oblivion and found it unimpressive. They expected you to come back fragile, shaken, uncertain. Instead, you came back distilled, purified, hardened in silence, and resurrected with accuracy. You became the person they hoped never to meet, the version of you that no longer depends on their validation to breathe. And the scariest part for them is that you're no longer reacting to them. You're not even engaging with their attempts to reassert control. You're moving forward while they scramble to understand where they went wrong. Your resurrection didn't just disrupt their system, it exposed its flaws. It showed the world that their power isn't absolute. It revealed that their decisions can be overturned by destiny. It proved that erasing someone on paper means nothing when the universe still has plans for them. And now they're haunted. Not by your revenge, not by your anger, not by your words, but by your survival. Because survival after burial is its own kind of warfare. It's a declaration that they failed at the one thing they thought they perfected, your removal. And now they're watching you exist with the calm of someone who has already died once and discovered that death is not as final as people pretend. Your presence is a disruption. Your pulse is a contradiction. Your movement is a reminder that you cannot bury someone who was born to dig their way out. And as you continue walking, stronger, sharper, more certain, they finally understand what they resurrected. A person who is no longer bound by their rules. A person who is no longer intimidated by their systems. A person who is no longer vulnerable to their sabotage. A person they can't control, can't calculate, and can't kill on paper ever again. And it's here, right at this intersection between who you were and who you became, that something in the atmosphere changes. Not around them, around you. The world doesn't respond to you the same way anymore. It's as if reality itself leans back slightly, recalibrating around your movements, analyzing the coordinates of someone who no longer fits into the grid. You walk with the stillness of someone who remembers the suffocating dark of the grave and now considers the open air a casual luxury. You breathe with the precision of someone who learned to inhale under pressure, exhale through rubble, and stay alive in environments designed to erase you. They're watching you move now, really watching, not studying you like a threat to neutralize, but observing you like a phenomenon they were never educated enough to understand. Because your survival didn't just break their predictions, it broke the logic those predictions were built on. You invalidated the foundation of their worldview simply by refusing to stay dead. And that realization cracks something inside them. The recognition that you are no longer within the boundaries they used to contain you. Your silence unnerves them more than any confrontation ever could. They expected you to return angry, to seek retaliation, to rage against the machinery that tried to crush you. But you came back quiet, precise, unbothered, as if you saw the entire blueprint of their sabotage and found it unimpressive, as if you died, returned, and now treat them like footnotes in a story they failed to end. That silence is the first sign of your ascension. It's not human silence. It's the silence of someone who has stepped out of the timeline they once shared. You're no longer reacting to life. You're directing it, like someone who saw the ending already and came back merely to refine the middle. They feel that shift. It crawls under their skin. It whispers to them that you are no longer a participant. They are. You are the environment now. When they buried you alive, they believed the ground above you was solid, unmovable, permanent. They never imagined you would learn to navigate through soil like an element reshaping itself under pressure. They never imagined you would study the dark until it became familiar, until the silence became a language, until the weight became irrelevant. They never imagined the burial would become your birthplace. So when you rise, when you break the surface and stand upright, with dust still clinging to your reborn skin, they don't just see a person. They see a force undoing their certainty. They see something ungoverned by their narratives, something unaligned with their frameworks, something unbothered by their fear. Your return marked the collapse of their illusion of control, but what happens next is what completely unravels them. Because resurrection wasn't your final form, it was only the doorway. Once you've died and returned, your relationship with the world changes on a structural level. You stop negotiating with circumstances. You stop bending for systems. You stop shrinking for people who don't have the authority to define you. You carry yourself like someone who has already survived the worst possible version of reality and was unimpressed by it. Every step you take now is a slow dismantling of the mental architecture they spent years constructing. They see you, and something inside them breaks quietly. Because the person they buried is gone, not in the way they wanted, but in the way they feared. You outgrew the identity they tried to trap you in. You exceeded the parameters they designed to limit you. You evolved into a version of yourself that simply doesn't acknowledge their attempts at control. This is the phase where your ascension becomes visible. You move differently. Intent becomes instinct. Boundaries become effortless. Momentum becomes natural. Where others hesitate, you proceed. Where others fear collapse, you see opportunity. Where others see endings, you see pivot points. You navigate the world with the precision of someone who has already experienced the void and decided not to return to it. And that's when the cosmic portion of your evolution reveals itself. Because what they didn't realize is that resurrection creates a fracture in the old physics of your life. When someone comes back from a burial, they don't return with the same spiritual mass. You distort probability, you distort expectations, you distort the predictions of those who depend on patterns. They buried a person. You returned an anomaly. You became the kind of presence that warps outcomes just by existing. The kind of presence that shifts the direction of events simply by stepping into the room. The kind of presence that causes the universe to rearrange its trajectory around your next move. You are functioning outside of normal human equations now. You're not lucky. You're gravitational. And that gravitational pull is what terrifies them on a level they don't speak of. They saw you dead. They accepted your ending.